It's Medina from the Clarinet Life, keeping it classically real for y'all. And today we're gonna dive back into the Nocentini. We're gonna look at Etude number 5. That one is an F major. Okay, let's dive into this. So there's not like a ton of things that I think I can share in terms of it being super complex or, I feel like this one, number 5, is a little less difficult. That's my opinion, especially the opening. But, it's funny because when you look at this opening, we have I call them longer notes, like dotted quarter and dotted half, and some eighth notes. And later on in this etude, we do have 16ths. Now, before we get started with all this rhythm stuff, it's important that your student understands compound meter. This particular etude is in 12/8. 12/8 is a compound meter, meaning that the dotted quarter is divided into 3 parts. Any kind of beat has to be divided into 3 parts if we're in a compound meter. Dotted quarter gets the beat, the eighth note is that basic division. Hence why you see the 12 and the 8. We have a total of 12 eighth notes per measure. That means we have a total of 4 dotted quarters per measure. So we count it in 4 when it's faster, and we think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 when we're doing it slower. All right, let me play a little bit of the opening. Even though you've heard it already, let me play just a little bit of the opening so you understand what I'm talking about. That's our opening phrase. And it's so important that your student subdivides. Handy dandy metronome. A lot of times when I'm playing music where there's a lot of long notes, I'll take my metronome and I'll get the beat. In this case, it started at quarter equals 60. So this is 60. This is one of the old chord tuners, by the way. It's a tuner metronome. And here's the thing, if you want to teach your students to subdivide, I think something that's really helpful for a student to have is a metronome that subdivides. And I know everyone uses their phone. I prefer old school handheld metronome because then I don't get distracted by my phone. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to put the beat, I'm going to subdivide that by 3, so it looks like a triplet. And so this is what your student's going to hear. And here's the thing, your brain, your mind, your inner ear, you have to feel that. You have to subdivide that. So that is something that your student is going to have to do. We have a pickup note, beat 4, going into the downbeat of our F dotted half F natural, and it's tied to the 3rd beat, which is an 8th note. And you know what? Let me put the subdivision. I love that. So, having the metronome as a tool, I say always, always, always. It helps keep us track, helps us put all the notes in the right place. So that is something that you will have to remind your student of. And if you're just like learning these really quickly, you might not feel the need to use the metronome. But you know what? I use it anyway, at least in the beginning, or sometimes when I learn a piece really well, I'll just break out the metronome back again and be very basic about being very clean. And it really kind of changes my perspective in certain ways. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it validates it, but other times I realize, oh, I'm taking a lot of time here, or, oh, is it necessary that I take time there? Or, ooh, I was not supposed to be doing that. So the metronome is a great tool to use. Moving forward, the other thing about this particular etude that I love is just the longer notes and how you're supposed to be connecting your sound. So tone and intonation, big deal, and you get an opportunity to really hear your sound. You know, it's not like tons of 16th notes or 32nd notes where it's really fast and really focusing on fingers. When we work on longer notes, it really gives us an opportunity to work on our sound and the connection of intervals. Intervals are the distance between 2 notes, by the way. However, the divisions do get smaller closer towards the end of the piece. And so measures 20 through 23, your student might have some questions regarding this. There is some syncopation. That part right there. And so there are 2 things that come to my mind. Number 1, tongue the first of the slur. Why? Number 1, the composer put that there. Right? The composer did put it there. The other thing is, when we're playing music, air, tongue, and fingers, when they're together, air is fast, tongue and fingers are together, it does a world of a difference. So the tongue is kind of like a place marker for the fingers, or vice versa. And so it's really important to emphasize that, and it just cleans everything up, I think. The other thing is, with the syncopation, in measure 20, you have an 8th note followed by a 16th tied. I'm looking at the beginning of measure 20. And it comes, and we have we have it a second time. And what's nice is the 3rd and 4th beat kind of gives us back into the land of 8th notes. That kind of helps us kind of get our grounding back again. And it kind of preps us for the that part right there. So one of the things that I will tell my students is, when you're practicing passages that are more technical, isolate, isolate, isolate. It really helps out a lot. I like to do, in this instance, what I like to call 2s, 3s, and 4s. I mentioned this, I believe, this practice technique in like the Krebs exercises. If you haven't seen that video, check it out, because when we do practice methods, different ways of practicing, it's transferable to other things that we play. So this is what I would do. I'm looking at measure 21, and yeah, let's just do 21. I'm going to start on the C, and I'm going to basically make every single note a 16th. Now I do have a tie, 8th note to a 16th. I'm going to ignore that just for the sake of this little exercise. And this is how I would practice it, by the way. So number one, use your metronome. And when you do these exercises, do it slower than what they request. So I'm taking away that subdivision of 3. I'm just going to make it into 1 right now. And so, let's see. So picking the right tempo requires you to think of the fastest division. The fastest division that we would have in this would be 6, 2, 3, 4, and 6. And 6 lends itself really nicely because compound meter is divisible by 3, right? So 6, 3, you know what I mean? So this is what I would do. This is quarter note equals 50. Let me demonstrate how I would show my students how to practice this. I'll show you a couple ways. So this is measure 21. I'm doing 2s. I'm going to do 3s, 4s, and the 6s using this tempo. I hope you can hear it. Etc. I'm just going to use that one measure. Now, once you go through the 2s and you do it well, jump into the 3s. Then, once that's good, spoiler alert, 4s. So you do 2s, 3s, 4s, then 6s. Now, you notice I skipped 5. There's nothing wrong with 5s, but I feel that it's a little bit harder, and I don't find it completely necessary to do 5s unless it's required, meaning it's in the music. So I do skip that. You can do it if you want. All right, so once you have that, what you're going to do is up your tempo. So if I did it on 50, then you do 60. Normally what I like to do is, in technical passages, like the music quarter note equals 60, I like to be able to play it a little faster than what's necessary, simply because I want to make sure my fingers move really well. Now, that's not required, but that's what I do, just FYI. So we did that, but there are other ways that we can practice this. So let me just show you one more way that I think might be helpful. And I call it the not add a note, I call it the hold a note. All right, so what I'm gonna do, even though the first beat in measure 21, you have an 8th with a 16th and all the rest are 16ths, what I'm gonna do is I am going to just kind of play that C a little bit longer than necessary. And when you play this Etude, you'll understand why. And then keep going. So I'm going to stick with 50. Bum, ba da da dee, da 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 da. So one of the things that you have to figure out is how to balance everything. All right, so I'm going to do hold a note, but I'm going to do kind of like groupings of 4. And so what that's going to do is you're going to feel a little bit of a shift, because what's originally written is it's in 3/16 each, because the dotted chord gets the beat. But this isn't a bad thing. This is okay. So let's try it. Let's see what happens. That's the thing. It's trial by error. You got to try. Nicely. So I would do that also. You can also do the hold a note with the 6s. So, and when I mean 6s, I mean like that full beat. So I'm going to skip actually the first beat of measure 21. So it'll kind of be like this. So you notice it's faster. Let's use 50. So I'm holding the beginning of that beat, then playing the other notes and holding the next beat. And I hope you guys can hear this, but I have it in quarter note equals, or in this case, dotted quarter note equals 50. And you might have to do it a few times. So. Until you really feel comfortable, okay? So it's one of those things that when you're doing this, we call it woodshedding. When you're doing this type of practicing, don't just play it 2 times and be like, done! No, it really needs to be clean. So if your notes are uneven or you keep missing a note, that means it's not clean, okay? You're not ready yet. We have to conquer that, and it takes time. And so sometimes practicing can be longer than you think. But give yourself that time, because once you do it, then you'll finally get it. But you have to be consistent in playing it correctly. Okay, so that section 21 and 22, that's something that your students are going to need to work on. Just a couple other things I was thinking of. So the other thing is kind of getting your student into patterns. It's kind of like thirds, right? So patterns are helpful because they allow us to kind of like let go a little bit, but at the same time, we have to remember that sometimes the patterns aren't always what we've studied. So for example, I mentioned thirds. Well, that's not throughout the whole thing, right? But it's okay. They'll figure that out, and you'll show it to them. You might have to show it to them. Okay, so I'm looking here, and there are some accented notes. So the accents are produced by the air. Okay, so you need to remind your student about breath support, blowing through the instrument. I don't think it's totally necessary to just strike the reed any harder with the tongue. So there are turns, all right? So that's something that they're gonna have to learn to do as well. Yeah, I feel like this one tends to be a little bit easier than the other ones that we've worked on. When I say we've worked on, I just showed you number 3, but I will be doing a couple of others. I think these etudes are great. They're really musical, and I think your students are going to enjoy it. And I think even if you're like someone like myself who's a professional, try and play these. These are great sight reading etudes too, and they're really musical as well. I have water in my keys. You hear that? That's kind of annoying. That's one of the annoying things about the clarinet is the water. And one of the things I will say is try to swab more frequently, because once you get that stream keeps coming back, it doesn't want to go away. Now, side note, when you're swabbing, try to do it slowly. It doesn't have to be super slow, but also try to make sure that the cloth is fully there. So if that happens, you have to undo clarinet and then kind of pull it out a little bit. Okay, so you see it was kind of bunched up a little bit. Don't ever, tug it and keep tugging it. That's not going to help you any. And you can always, if you need to adjust the upper and lower joint, then do that. But yeah, so let's try that again. Beautiful ending, right? I think it's so cool. All right, so yeah, this is Nocentini Etudes. The book that I'm using is the David Hite edition from Southern Music Company, Melodious and Progressive Studies, book 1. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Like this video if it's helpful, and I will see you next time.